Well, I'm at your service, Kyle. You're a special person to me.
Thank you, Brian. You're special to me. I so appreciate this. So, Brian, we started working together in 1991. First event was in Atlanta. And, every time we've had dinner, every time we've connected, which has been many, 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 many times. By the way, we just had the 8th anniversary of the 20-year anniversary of the Success Mastery Academy that just rolled around a few weeks ago.
Right?
But I'm always sitting there taking notes. I'm always listening. I've never not wanted to just say, wow, this is incredible. Like you have this incredible ability to take information, synthesize it to what's the most useful and meaningful. And so I'm excited to ask you about 4 or 5 topics. I know you could talk on many, many topics, but we're going to focus in. I'm going to begin with one of your favorite topics, which is goals and goal setting. So, what are some of your best ideas and thoughts and strategies about setting goals?
Well, this subject is so close to my heart. I didn't realize I'm the best-selling author in the world in 39 languages on goals. My book, Goals, is sold a million copies, and it's about been completely rewritten. It's being reissued this year, and it'll sell another million copies. And as I went through it, I hadn't looked at it for a while. I was astonished at how powerful goal setting is. I remember somebody once asked me, what are the revelations that you've had? I said, well, at one time I thought that time management and goals were peripheral to my life. They were just things that you plucked at it every so often. And then I realized that they're central, that those are the starting and ending points. So I began to develop technologies or methodologies of setting goals. And what I've learned is that you can achieve extraordinary things, and you already have by setting goals. And it's because of this. I've just written a new book, and the book is called The Absolutely Unbreakable Laws of Money and Success. And it's the 32 laws, and the book has now just been released. And in that, I take the very best laws and principles that I've learned, and I say that there's a difference between a law and a principle or an idea. A law is always true for everyone, everywhere. I say it's like the law of gravity. In the earth, things fall down. They never fall up. They fall down. Well, once you learn the laws, if you break the laws, nature is completely unforgiving. If you
Hmm.
break the laws, then sort of, for example, the law of compensation was first described by Ralph Waldo Emerson. These laws have never been created by men. They've only been discovered. They've always existed. They're timeless. Anyway, what it says is that you will always be compensated exactly in equal measure for what you put in. So if you want to get more out, you put more in. And one of the most wonderful principles about this is that it's like sowing and reaping. When you sow a seed, nature grows the seed. When you put in, nature will grow the result for you. You don't have to ever worry about it. You don't have to worry about giving more and contributing more time and helping. That's why so many of the richest families in history have tithed their way to success, is they give money away, and the more money they give away, the more money comes back to them. It just flows like a river to them, and they become fabulously wealthy, the Rockefellers and people like that. But the more you give away of yourself, the more it comes back to you in the most remarkable and unexpected ways. And you don't have to worry about it. That's just one of the 32 laws that we talk about. And so, one of the things that I found with regard to goals is that when you set a very clear, specific goal for yourself and write it down, and this is really important, I say it, write it down, write it down, write it down. It's you trigger what is called a psychoneuromotor activity, which means that it programs, just like programming with a computer, it programs into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind then conveys it to your superconscious mind, and your superconscious mind is so incredibly powerful that it's amazing how few people understand this. But once it goes into your superconscious mind, then a whole series of things start to happen. You activate the law of attraction. You activate the law of correspondence. Your outer world reflects your inner world. You activate a whole series of laws. And what happens is you begin to achieve at a level that you never thought possible before. And if you don't do this, it's like a law. It's like having a computer, a supercomputer that you never turn on. You watch television instead, and it just sits there. And this computer is connected to all the information and knowledge in the universe, and you can access it with a goal. You can access it with a goal. So I've rewritten this book, and when I rewrote the book, I was just astonished at how helpful it is and how many people come up to me. I'm getting carried away, but I'll just stop in a second. They come to me and they come to me out of a crowd. They come to me on the street. They come to me in Europe and Asia, and they say the same words. They say, "You're Brian Tracy. You changed my life. You made me rich. You changed my life. You made me rich." And I say, "Well, I've done a lot of work. What is it about my material that was so helpful?" And they pause and they smile and they beam. I mean, from the inside, they say, "It was the goals." I really never understood the power of goals until I read your description of it or I listened to it and so on. So now, one man I was speaking to, a client of mine, I said, that more people have become wealthy using this material than any other thing that's ever been discovered. And he said, "Well, that would account for me." He said, "I was struggled for 20 years, and then I read your material and I started using it." He said, "Today I'm a millionaire." He said, "I got more money than I could ever spend. I got 36 people working for me, pouring money into." He said, "I've never had so much money since I started to use these principles." So when you talk about goals, you just set me off because it is so powerful and it's a law, which is the wonderful thing. It doesn't matter if you're an educated or uneducated. I've spoken to more people who've come to the United States as immigrants, uneducated and illiterate, they couldn't speak English, who've become millionaires. And you know why? It's because they believed that here in the US you could do it. And they set goals. They wrote down their goals and they accomplished things that they could never dream possible. And so can you. Here's what I tell my audiences, and people come back. This is where they come back and say, "You changed my life. You made me rich." I couldn't believe that that exercise was so simple. One of the things that I do is I have this, for example, it's a spiral notebook, and I've been using a spiral notebook since I was 15. And what you do is you get a spiral notebook, school notebook, costs $1.50, and you take to a clean sheet of paper, you write goals at the top, and then you write down 10 goals. You write down 10 goals in the present tense. This is really important. I was reading something by Bob Proctor, our dear friend who no longer with us. He said the same thing. It's got to be in writing. It's got to be in writing. That's what we found. So you write it down, you activate this psychoneuromotor activity, and it programs into your brain, and then it just goes to work and works 24 hours a day to bring you everything you need at exactly when you need it, especially in the form of ideas. So you write down 10 goals, and then tomorrow morning, you turn to a clean page. You don't look at the previous page and write down 10 goals again. And then tomorrow morning, 10 goals again. And every morning, you get up, have a cup of coffee, and write down your 10 goals. It takes 3 to 5 minutes. If you'll do that for 30 days, you'll double your income. And people say, "Well, it's not possible. That's ridiculous. That's an exaggeration." What does it cost you to try? I'm obviously not a stupid person. I'm living in a very nice big house, and I've got a full bank account, and I never have to work again. And I never even worried about that. I just wrote down that I'll have a net worth of this amount by this time, and we went shooting past that, shooting past it. So do the same thing. Write down 10 goals every day. Now, I used to do a coaching program and a group coaching program. And I would bring about 20 or 30 people to my nearby facilities every 3 months, or it would be 4 times a year. And I had about 1,000 people through this program in 7 years. And I charged them $5,000 per year. And people would say, "Well, how can I justify that amount of money?" You had to have a minimum income of $100,000 to come to this program. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a guarantee. I call it my double guarantee. You will double your income and you will double your time off with your family within 12 months, or I'll give you 100% of your money back, no questions asked. And they said, well, on that basis, because I had a good reputation, on that basis, I'll sign up. So they signed up, and I said, now, and let me introduce you to your new best friend. And I would hand out spiral notebooks. This is the first morning. I front loaded this program. Write down these 10 goals and do this every day for a month. And then, if you like, keep doing it every single day for the rest of your life. Goals will change, the description will change, the order will change, the emphasis will change, but just keep writing down 10 goals and see what happens. In 7 years and 1,000 business owners, entrepreneurs earning between $100,000 and $500,000, they all doubled their income within 30 days. All of them. I never had a request for a refund. It was almost like should have been illegal because it was so guaranteed that they would be successful. They could not believe it. They would come back after 3 months and we're talking about, all right, what kind of experience did you have? Boy, you could not stop them. They were so excited and so happy. They worked years to get to their income level, and then they've doubled it and tripled it in less than 90 days by writing down their goals. So I pass that on to you. That's one of the most important things that you can do is write it down. Now, there's one other technique, which I call the magic wand technique, and we've done this in the seminar we did with you in Dallas, is imagine that you have a magic wand. One of my clients actually bought me a magic wand from a magic store. Imagine you have a magic wand, you can wave it and achieve any one goal in your life. If you could achieve any one goal, which one goal would have the greatest positive effect on your life? In your case, it was weight loss. That was the one thing that you wanted to do. And it's a concern of mine as well. Food is so good. Anyway, so what is my goal would have the biggest positive effect? And then you write it down. And just imagine what one great thing would you dare to dream if you knew you could not fail, and write it down. And second of all, then you ask, what one skill, if you developed and did it over and over again, would help you the most to achieve that goal, and write that down. And then what you do is you think about the goal all the time and you work on the skill. And you just work on developing that skill. For example, if you want to be successful in business, if you want to earn a lot of money, self-made billionaires have one special quality. I've made this a study for years, is that they are serial entrepreneurs. A serial entrepreneur is a person who's always looking for an unsatisfied need that people have that they can satisfy profitably. And so they're always looking for how they can serve other people. What can they do for people that will make them so happy they'll buy my product or service rather than that of something else? And wherever you see an Amazon or an Apple or a Facebook, wherever you see somebody or NVIDIA, if you like, has just come up with this IA software. These guys, the business has gone up $2 or $3 trillion in the last few months because why? Is they've identified something that people really want to have. So a serial entrepreneur is always looking for something, some way to satisfy people. And then once they have that and they make it better and better and faster and more efficient, then they see another idea and another idea. So they're constantly coming out with new ideas to serve people, to improve their lives, to make them happy, and they have what is called a unique selling proposition. Their product or service is distinctly different and better and superior to anything else. So that's what will happen to you. You'll have ideas. You cannot believe it. If you want to become financially independent, if you want to become a millionaire or more, write it down, write it down, write it down, and it'll just come to you. Anyway, so these are the things that happen when you have written goals. If you don't have written goals, alas, you are missing one of the most incredible powers of the universe. All the laws in the universe conspire to work for you and with you when you have written goals. If you don't have written goals, nothing happens. And 80% of the population, Harvard did a study amongst their graduating MBA students a few years ago, and they asked them, how many of you have written goals and plans to achieve them when you graduate? And they found 3% had written goals and plans. 14% had goals, but not in writing, no plans. More than 80% had no goals, no plans. I think it was 17%. So they went back 10 years after they graduated and went to work, and they interviewed them. They found that the 3% that had written goals when they went out, all top students, all straight A's, all summa cum laudes, and so on, the ones with written goals were earning on average 10 times as much in the same period of time of their working lifetime as the people with no goals. And it was just so astonishing because these people were focused. The expression shot from guns, they just shot from guns. They just started off their lives just blasting, and they went ahead fat. They got better jobs, they moved up faster, they got promoted, they made more money. Imagine, Kyle, and I say to people, what would happen if you were earning 10 times as much as you are today? What would happen if you're earning twice as much? What difference would it make in your life? And so one of the things I said, well, how would a person earn 10 times as much? I don't mean to dominate this conversation, but you got me really excited. How can you earn 10 times as much? Well, one day I was walking down the street. I still remember, and I thought, how could you earn 10 times as much? And I heard about compound interest. Einstein said that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, and it's so miraculous. So I thought, well, look at Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said, he was asked, what's the key to your financial success? He said, I invest in the American stock market and trust to compound interest. He said, it's become one of the richest men in the world. He said he doesn't go in and out of the market. He just buys good companies and just stays with them for the long term. Well, so talk about compounding. So I thought, and I've given this to my audiences, by the way, over the years, and people come back to me and say, you changed my life. You made me rich with that formula. And the formula is very simple. It's based on the fact that if you could improve your productivity, performance, output, and results by 2% a month, it's 2% a month, that's 0.5% a week, then that would be 25% in a year. And I say, is that possible? Well, most people could be 25% more productive today if they just simply did only their top 2 to 3 tasks. Warren Buffett was also asked his secret to success, and he said, simple, I just say no to everything. I say no to everything that is not the 2 or 3 most important things I can do. He said, if you do that, then you're always working at the top of your game. Anyway, so I said, all right, so if you just say no to anything that is not the 2 or 3 most important things, you will be at least 2% more productive per week, per month, and 25% per year. With compounding, you will double your income in 2 years and 7 months. And if you keep getting a little bit better, we're talking about an infinitesimal amount, keep getting 2% better per month, you will in 10 months be 1,007% higher paid. In other words, you'll increase your income 10 times in 10 years. And so I wrote down my little formula, which I'll give you in a second, and I began to practice it. And you know what I found? And people come up to me and say, your formula doesn't work. Your formula doesn't work. I said, really? And they say, it doesn't take 10 years. It works much, much faster. One gentleman, I still remember him, he said, I was selling cars when I came to your seminar, and 6 years after I began your formula, this year, I'm earning 10 times as much as I ever earned in my life before. He said, and it just happens. It just happens. He said, I've never had so much money. He said, just that little tiny compound. So here's it. Number one, get up early every morning. Wealthy people get up by 6 a.m. Set your clock, set your mind, so you get up at 6 a.m. every morning. Number two is read 1 hour a day. Read 1 hour a day in your field. The average adult reads about one book per year, one nonfiction book a year. If you read an hour a day, that'll translate into one nonfiction book per week, 50 books a year. You will be at the equivalent of the highest level of university education every year, with one benefit. is because you select what you read. You don't have to read all the useless stuff that is assigned in the university. So if you read an hour a day, you'll become one of the best educated and highest paid people in your community. And you could stop right there. But number three is plan every day. No, write out your 10 goals every single day. Take your spiral notebook and write out 10 goals every day. Every day. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes, but what it does is focuses your whole mind on the future. Number four is plan every day in advance. Make a list of everything that you have to do. And then number five and number five is organize the list and by priority. What is number one? What is number two? And then start on number one and work 100% on the most valuable thing that you can do to achieve your most important goals. We talked about it. Number six is ask two questions after every event. What did I do right? And what would I do differently next time? What did I do right? What will I do differently? This focuses you on the positive side of every action. You never beat yourself up and say, oh, I shouldn't have done this or I made this mistake and so on. Everybody makes mistakes. It's impossible to succeed without failing, as you know. So therefore, say, what did I do right? Every sales call, every meeting, every negotiation. What did I do right? What would I do differently? And then number seven is treat every person you meet like $1 million customer. Treat every person you meet and start at home with your spouse and your children. Treat them like they're the most valuable people in the world. This has an effect on your whole life, your whole worldview, your whole attitude. But treat every customer, even a customer that doesn't seem to be a good customer, treat them like they're the most valuable potential customer you could talk to. Why? Because you never know who they know and who they know. And many of your very best customers will come from somebody who couldn't buy from you, but they knew somebody who could because you treated them well, they remembered you, and they recommended you. So you do those seven things, and every single person who does those seven things gets up early, reads, rewrites their goals, plans every day in advance, focus on the top priority. As on one other, which I didn't mention, is listen to audio programs in your car. Listen to audio programs. You and I have had our lives transformed by listening to audio programs by Jim Rohn and other people, because sometimes these ideas are worth a fortune to us. The right idea at the right time can save you 5 years of hard work, but you never know what that idea is. So you've got to continually drown your mind in ideas. Keep bringing in, read, listen, talk, go to seminars like you and I have done for so many years. Countless people have told you and told me that seminar changed my life. Remember what Darren Hardy told us in the seminar that we did, that he basically was broke and an army brat, and within 5 years he was a millionaire. And when he came to that seminar, he was financially independent. He said it was because of these things that we're talking about right now. And he had never heard them before, but he was one of those perfect students. They don't question. They don't say, what about this and what about that? They just do it. And the results they get are phenomenal. So these are some of the things that I teach, and I'm really excited because they work for me. And just like they work for you, these stuff really work. People say, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, it doesn't cost you anything to try, for Christ's sake. We're not asking you to cut off a leg or an arm or sell your home. We're just saying, just change the direction of your efforts and work a little bit on these things that are proven to work for everybody who tries them. And they work. I've spoken in 84 countries. I've spoken to 5 million people. I share the same principle. And you know what? They work in every single country and culture, every single language, and every single part of the world. I mean, it's just the most astonishing things. I get letter after letter after after email saying, you changed my life. You made me rich. You changed my life. You made me rich. So those are some of the things that I would, if the building was on fire and I could run in and give one or two messages to our friends who are listening today, these are the things that I would say.
Brian, that's gold. Just so much great stuff. And I'm just resonating with all of it. So I have to just quickly tell my story. I grew up in a small town, never went to college, doing drugs, shooting up drugs, selling drugs. And I changed my life at age 19, moved to Dallas at age 26 to start a detail shop, like a service station detail shop.
Right?
Very serendipitously got in the seminar business 2 years later. And I remember hearing you and Zig 1989, and I bought all your stuff. And I remember just so resonating with you, and it was the psychology of achievement. And I started promoting Jim Rohn. So you and Jim have by far been my greatest influences. But before I ever met you in person, the psychology of selling, I was using how to get referrals. I was using how to get testimonials. I was using all that. And of course, the psychology of achievement and setting goals. And, to go on and build a 8-figure business, very profitable business, and then sell it. So
Yeah.
much of it is all the things you're talking about, setting goals, everything. I sat at your and Jim's, feet, and I did it. I actually did what you taught. And then to have the privilege to promote you at so many different times, so many different events, and introduce you to the world. And, for me, Brian, I've always tried to be congruent, and I only work with people I believe in. Like, I have said no thousands of times to people wanting me to promote them, sell their stuff, because I've been doing this over 30 years now, right? But
You and me.
you've been doing it a lot longer than me, but I'm on 35 years, I guess, because 1989 is when I first got in the industry. But it's been you and Jim have by far been my greatest influences in my personal life. And it's so easy to want to promote you. And what people might not realize is, like, you're talking about goals. You could spend a week on goals. Like, you have done intense programs and study. You're the real deal. So I got to tell this one other piece. I think it was 1992 or 93. And I'm promoting you at different events. Check this out. I'm doing Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy one-day events, right? And I'm getting 2,000 plus people. That one in Sacramento was 2,400 people before I did the handshake with Jim. And you invited me to your house. I lived in Texas. You invited me to San Diego, La Jolla. And I remember we're in your office, and you said, Kyle, you don't have kids yet. You're married. You don't have kids. If I was you, and you compared it to getting a plane off the ground, you said, I would go all in for the next 2 to 5 years. Like, just give it all, because if you'll do that, it's like getting a plane off the ground, and it takes more energy to
Yes.
go 80 miles an hour down the runway than it does to go 400 miles an hour at 30,000 feet in the air. And Brian, I did it. It really sunk in, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go pay that price. And eventually that led to getting 2,500 people in a room, that then led to all the things that happened. And then finding the internet, when the internet came, building the first 1 million plus email list and all that. But what incredible advice you gave me to pay the price for that. You said you don't have to do it your whole life, just 2 to 5 years, go all in, get the plane, and then you'll benefit from the momentum, the compound interest, the opportunities that we create. So, I'm just so grateful to you, and so honored to still have you in my life, that we still do things together. You wrote the foreword for my last book, and you're going to be in this book, and you continue to be such a good friend and to impact so many people out there. So always grateful and honored.
The advice that you're giving is so important, because the great majority of people, that 80-20 rule keeps biting you in the butt. 80% of people basically are going nowhere. They're looking for shortcuts. They arrive at the last minute. They leave at the first minute. They waste 50% of their time statistically just chatting with their friends and playing on the internet and so on. It's only the top 20% of people who, and here's the simple rule, because I'm now one of the world's top experts, I'm happy to say, on time management
Yes.
and personal productivity, is work all the time you work. When you work, work. And this is not playtime. I tell this story that when you're young and you're a child and you go to school for the first time, you're really nervous and scared, and you're parents take you to the teacher, and the teacher takes you away, and they put you in a room, and who else is in the room? There's a bunch of other little kids. Well, what do you do with other little kids? You play.
Right.
So pretty soon you begin to think about play. School is play place. You go there not to learn. You go there to play with your friends, and before school and after school and weekends and birthdays. And then you get older and you get into high school, and then you start to play different games with your friends. And then you go to college and you play, and then you take your first job. And you're really nervous. Some people are so nervous they can't even go to work the first day. You go to work on your first day, and what do you see? A whole bunch of people your age. And what do you do with people your age? You play. And so work is the primary play place. And people talk about going to work and being happy and seeing your friends and chatting about what you watched on television last night. No, this is a workplace. This is work time. This is not playtime. And this is the big difference between the 80% and the 20%. The 20% of time realize there is a time for every purpose under heaven, as it says in the Bible, and this is work time. And when they go to work, they work the whole time. People
Yes.
say, well, you got a minute to talk. Yes, but not right now. Right now, I've got to get back to work, back to work, back to work. This is work time. After work, we can chat. Weekends, we can chat. But right now, I've got to get back to work. And you'll find that your most successful people are your hardest workers. And even people, I remember this Guy Kawasaki was interviewing a man named David Porter, who is a great impresario. He's brought Celine Dion and a whole series of other singers to the market. And he's was saying, you must be proud of the fact that you've released 100 best-selling songs in the course of your career. And David said, well, yes, he said, but remember, I released 1,000 songs. Only 100 took off. And he said, well, this is Kawasaki. He said, well, what do you do on the weekends? And you could hear on the interview, there's a pause. And he said, geez, he said, I don't know any successful people who don't work 6 days a week. I don't know any successful people who work less than 6 days a week. And I never forgot that. Wow. Successful people work very hard. They don't coast. Remember, there's an old saying, you can only coast in one direction. And people don't coast who are successful. They work 6 days a week, and they work. They get up early and they get prepared and they hit it, and they work all day long and sometimes into the evenings. And they have to do that maybe for several years before they'll actually break through, and they can sort of pull back a little bit like an airplane taking off, like your analogy. Once we reach altitude, you can pull back on the stick because you can't go at that intensity in an airplane where you'd burn up all your fuel. But you do need massive fuel to get to that level. And it's the same thing with successful people. Is you don't wait until your time. I remember I worked for a gentleman who was a great man, great man. He's died now. He started with very little, and he became almost a billionaire. He owned 200 companies, and he hired me as his personal assistant. He never had an assistant before, and he used me as an assistant. And there were a lot of politics in the company. Anyway, I remember that I would tell him, I want more responsibility. And whenever I had a spare minute, I would say, I'm caught up. I want more responsibility. And he was hesitant, and he said, well, all right, here's something. You give it to me. And whatever he gave me, he said, I would take it like a football player catching a fumble and running for yards. And I developed a reputation. If you wanted things done, you could give it to other people. But if you wanted them done now, give it to Brian. Within a year, and people have been there 10 years, within a year, I had 3 divisions of the company. I had the biggest offices in the company, except for the chairman's, his. I had my own staff and 3 outside staffs. I was running hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate development projects. It was the most amazing darn thing. And so people, MBA students would say, invite me to speak. What's the key to success? And I said, the key to success is always raise your hand.
Mm.
Is whenever something comes up, you say, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. he finally got to the point where he said, "Stop raising your hand." He said, "You already taken on more work than you can do." I said, just give me the work." And so raise your hand, ask for more, keep asking for more. And when you get an opportunity, run with it like a fumble in a football game, and you'll get more and more. And then you get better and better, and you get bigger and bigger opportunities. But it's the simplest thing of all. Just raise your hand, offer and volunteer to do more stuff, and that really works. But here's the best thing. And it was I was reviewing some of my research. There's a psychologist named William Glasser. William Glasser wrote in the 80s and 90s, and he's no longer with us. But Glasser came up with the idea of what is called the positive addiction. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but the positive addiction, he wrote a book on the subject, and I would recommend it. He said, every time you do anything, your brain releases chemicals, good chemicals, bad chemicals. If you do something positive, loving, happy, healthy, if you laugh, your brain releases endorphins and dopamines, and they're feel-good chemicals. They make you feel good. They make you happy. They energize you. If you do something negative, if you're worried, if you're angry, then your body releases negative chemicals, and those negative chemicals can affect your heart and your strokes and everything else. So he said the key is to set and achieve goals, because when you set a goal, you get happy just thinking about the goal, even before you've achieved it. And then when you work toward the goal, every step that you take towards something that's important to you releases positive chemicals, energizes you, makes you feel happy, powerful, proud, content, cheerful, sense of humor, and so on. Now here's the key. If you take your 10 goals, the more important the goal is, the more of these happy chemicals your brain releases. And if your brain keeps releasing these chemicals, you become addicted to positive activities. You become addicted to working progressively towards your most important goals every day. You can actually turn yourself on and give yourself a buzz, a very healthy, positive buzz all day by just working progressively all day towards something that's important to you and to other people. And this is why people will get so wired on their goals, and they lose patience. I had a guy come up to me at a seminar once. He said, ever since I began practicing your stuff, I've lost patience with my coworkers. He said, they say I'm not really any fun anymore because I just simply cannot waste time shooting the breeze with them. And they said, well, you're just no fun anymore. I said, how are you doing? He said, I've never been more successful. I've never made more money in my whole life. And that's important to my family. It's me. It's important. Men, especially, women as well, but men especially rate their success by how well they're doing as providers. We men love to provide. We don't really even care what they do with it, but we love to be able to provide for our families and for the people that we love. And so when we were really good hunters, as they say, the most respected people in the tribe in the old days were the best hunters, the ones that came home with the most game. Well, when we're good hunters, we feel really happy about ourselves. We don't eat it all, I mean, for heaven's sakes, but we love to feel productive. We love to feel valuable and important. So I just pass that on, is whenever you write down your goals, pick your most important goal and then work on it continually. Work on your most important goal. You feel great about yourself. And soon you actually addict yourself to working on more and more important things and doing them better and better. And it's the key to success.
Brian, this is so powerful, so good. I just want to remind the listeners. So when Brian's talking about goals, he's talking about time management. When he's talking about, I brought up his sales program. I devoured all his programs, not just in person in a journal, but also I bought all his programs. I sold all his programs, but I bought them on cassette, and then I bought them on CD, and now I have them digitally. So go to briantracy.com. And I'm not just saying this. I mean, it literally made me a millionaire listening to his goals program, his time management program. Brian would say when someone would come into your office, kind of knock on the door and come into the office, stand up and go meet them at the door. Otherwise, they come in and just, stand up, go meet them at the door. So that way you can quickly get back. When you're on an airplane work, Brian, I only fly first class. It's one of my, I'm not really into cars. I'm not really into clothes or certain things that matter to me, but I always fly first class. But you know what? I'm not even worried about it because I get so much work done on an airplane that it's worth it to me to be more comfortable, to sit where I need to sit, to not take the risk that two people my size are going to be on each side of me, you know. So I buy first class because I'm going to make it up just in the work I will get done on the plane, never mind the people I've met and the, just how you feel about yourself. And you talk about that as well. And
Yeah.
then everything you have talked about, I feel like I've gotten to experience parts of it because I learned it from you. So I just really want to encourage everyone listening to go get these programs. They're available digitally. You can buy them. It's the best investment you could ever make. And I'm saying that because it really changed my life and it changed so many other people's lives. So again, Brian, I just so appreciate you and I'm resonating with everything you're saying.
Well, if I could make a suggestion, the audio programs that I would recommend are Psychology of Achievement and Psychology of Selling. I have
Yes.
many other programs as well, the Power of Time Management and so on. But those two, Psychology of Achievement, it's the best-selling success program in the world, and the Psychology of Selling has made more people millionaires in the field of selling, according to the research, than any other single influence. But always have them on, what you can do with this is phenomenal because
Yes.
you can download, you can have an encyclopedia of material on your phone and you can access it in a second when you're driving. So it's wonderful technology.
And it's so concise too. Like one of the things that really helped me in the seminar business early on, there's multiple steps. You have to book the presentation and you got to show up, then you have the pre-manager, and you give the presentation, then you have the sales. The sales, I kind of did a little bit of the Jim Rohn takeaway of just, hey, best price. If you want to do it, great. If not, no hard sell. But that worked for me. But afterwards, then I would meet with the manager and I used your referral technique. And Brian, I would get 5, 10 referrals. Then after I got the referrals, and I did what you taught, get the business card right on the back of it, be looking down. Do you have another? You just keep looking down and while they answer, and then you go to well, how about, and you depending on the industry, you then go from other Century 21s to other people in the MLS, other people that they are in the country club with.
Yes.
And from there, I would get the testimonial letter. And every time I would go to a new city, I'm in Chicago, and I would have a box of testimonials from New York Life, from Mary Kay, from business journals, from every different city that I
Yes.
would accumulate. And that compounding of testimonials and referrals, at the time, it doesn't help you, but it helps you every step after that, right? And I think most of my competition was so focused on getting results right then and there, and they were
Yes.
lazy about the other. And part of it was because they didn't book their own talks. They had telemarketers that booked their own talks, so they didn't care. I booked
Right.
my own talks. So getting referrals and being able to call someone, and it was 100% using what you had taught. So the stuff is all out there and it's so concise. I love podcasts. People are listening to this on a podcast, but podcasts aren't as concise as the audio programs, that take you right to the meat of the answer for any specific problem they're wanting to solve.
Because the audio programs, you're right, have to be like a movie, very carefully scripted, word for word. They have to move logically from one subject to the next. They have to give practical examples of how to use the material and so on. So they're much more memorable. Whereas a conversation is enjoyable because it's fast moving, but it's not that easy to recall.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, I'm going to jump into part 3 of our thought leader thing, which is now I'm going to do some Q&A, just some quick questions. And this is almost the most fun for me. Like, I love biographies. I love learning the story behind the story, what makes someone tick. So I'm just going to jump in. Now, some of these you can say skip or not interested. It can be a 2-word answer, or you can, go 10 minutes, whatever you want to do. But I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of questions. So here's
Okay.
the first one. Do you have a favorite movie or movies? And if so, if you want to share why, that would be great.
Huh. Well, it always people say that about a book. I say, well, what category? Economics, spirituality, history, business, and so on. So when you say movies, I've just watched 3 movies in a row that I really liked. One was, and they're all with Mel Gibson. One
Okay.
is, uh, one is The Patriot.
Mhm.
The other is Braveheart, and the third is, geez, it just escapes me, but. Um, maybe you can think of one of his really successful pictures, but I like them because they in Braveheart some years ago a management consultant, very wise man from New York, came into my office and I asked him what he was doing. He said, "Well, he's got a question," and he's taking it to all of his clients. And the question is this: is what is your most important value in life? What is your most important value in life? And I thought that's really interesting because we were having a meeting of about 12 business owners in my office at that time. So I introduced it to them, and basically we spent almost the whole afternoon talking about values. And then I realized that your values are the axle around which your whole life turns. And people who are successful are very clear about their values and they don't compromise them. People who are unsuccessful are fuzzy about their values and they'll compromise them or give them up with the slightest temptation.
Mm.
So my value, my answer was freedom.
Yes.
Freedom is it's my greatest value. I love it passionately. And freedom means that you have to have enough money to do what you want. It also means that you put freedom highly. And I looked at my family, and I've always organized it so that they have freedom. So I love the virtue of freedom. And in Braveheart, as you know, the very end of the movie, he shouts freedom, freedom, and so on. And you never forget that. You never forget that part. It won 5 Academy Awards, by the way. And Mel Gibson produced it, directed it, funded, and starred in it.
It's a
So,
great movie.
and what I like about it was just that whole thing about the emphasis on freedom. Everything is freedom. And so I always ask other people, what is your most important value? And it's a real good question because your value is the person you, this is who you really are, is your values, what values that you believe in, that you can articulate, that you stand for, that you never compromise. There are certain values that you never compromise. And so
And,
that would
and,
be
and freedom would be my highest value as well. So we share that as entrepreneurs. I'm
yeah,
pretty much unemployable. Not that I would ever go get a job, but
right.
you watched me. I sold my companies and I had to stay on for a year, and that was a difficult year but I digress. So here's the next one. How do you recharge?
Well, I love to read. And I also, now that my kids are grown, I have 8 grandchildren, and my whole family, next Saturday, we're going on an Alaska cruise. So it'll be about 10 days, and the whole family will be on the cruise. There'll be a total of 16 people, the 4 adults, mm, spouses, and children, about 16. And that is a great opportunity because what we do, everybody does everything they want during the day, but in the evening we come together and we have dinner together. And it's just a wonderful thing. And you realize that everything else is secondary to your family.
Yes.
Everything, nothing else is that important. And my greatest importance is my wife. Is I tell her I lucked out when I met her and we got married because she's just the best thing that ever happened to me in my whole life. And I wish that for everyone else. And then we have children, and our children are wonderful children. They're great values, and they're outspoken, and they're independent, and they're confident, and they talk back to their father. They're completely irreverent. but but that's what I do is I spend time, and I'm now that I'm past the age of 80, I'm now asking this question: if you were going to die in 1 year, what would you do differently in that last year? And I, of course, plan to live forever, but the average age that people are dying at, males like me, is about 81 or 82. I mean, I read the obituaries with some seriousness, and I look at it and I think I'm in great shape physically, but if I only had a year to live, how would I spend that year? And then how would I spend my money? Because I have nice bank account because I worked hard and saved my money like you're supposed to do, and it works. Work hard, save your money, and rely on compound interest. So therefore, I'm not going to outlive my money. So what would you do to spend it? And you spend it with your family, spend it with your wife, and spend it with your kids, spend it with your family, because that's the most important thing in life. If you're on your deathbed, the only thing you regret is not having spent more time with your family.
Love it, Brian. So this one's tricky because it's what's your favorite quotes? But I did a quote booklet for you back in 1994. So
Fine.
you're prolific with quotes, but do you have two or three quotes that stand out the most? Because I know you do so many quotes of all the different influences, but do a couple stand out to you more than others?
Well, I started off poor like you did. I started off, didn't graduate from high school, worked on laboring jobs and so on. And so one of the quotes that I like that I've drilled into my children is you can do anything you put your mind to. You
Hmm.
can do anything you put your mind to, and every type of quote that reinforces that is there are no limits except the limits you place on yourself. And the most important I say is you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. I
Hmm.
really love that as a quote because the all the negative feelings and fears and doubts and anxieties people have are because they doubt that. Louise Hay had this beautiful observation. She said, most of the problems in life come from the feeling I'm not good enough.
Hmm.
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to do this, to achieve this, to have this, to own this, to deserve this, and so on. And so, what I've told my children is, by gum, you are good enough. You can do anything you put your mind to. There's no limits except the limits that you place on yourself. And then, whatever you teach to others, you reinforce in yourself. So, when you teach really valuable lessons like that, then you start to think and start to believe them yourself. And if you believe them yourself, they become true for you. As you know, we talked about affirmations. We say you become what you think about most of the time. You also become what you say to yourself most
Hmm.
of the time. So
Hmm.
whatever you say to yourself, whatever is impressed, as Aristotle said, is expressed. So whatever you impress into your own self. And then the final thing is you become what you teach. So when you share your favorite ideas with other people, you actually internalize them at a deeper and deeper level until they become as natural as breathing. You really cannot even imagine not being able to do whatever you put your mind to. And that's why writing goals is so important because the more greater clarity you have with regard to your goals, the more and faster you accomplish extraordinary things. And
So
and that,
true.
that's what you and I have demonstrated to ourselves. And look where we've come. I mean,
Yes.
we've done kind of well in life.
Love that. So, Brian, have you had any challenges or things that went bad that turned out to be blessings? And I know you have because you run businesses but something that's like, wow, that was the worst thing that could happen, but then that turned out to be a blessing.
Well, yes, and the biggest mistake that I've ever made, because I but fortunately made a lot of money, and we do make money in bursts. So we have a lot of money. When you have a lot of money in a burst, you unfortunately look for ways to invest it.
Right.
And the biggest mistake I ever made was failure to do due diligence. My
Okay.
two words in the world of money are due diligence. That's
Mm.
where you very carefully study every aspect of a proposed investment. And you go very, very careful because, as Jim said, other people say, money is hard to earn and very easy to lose. And so what happened with me, I have a lot of money and I'd have here a business idea and we'd sit down and it would look really great and I'd invest my money in it, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if I had done due diligence, if I'd studied it, I would have realized that the person or the opportunity or the market or something else was wrong. And so in my new book, the 32 Unbreakable Laws of Money and Success, one of the things I talk about is due diligence
Mm.
and realize that every single investment has a fatal flaw. It has a fatal flaw, and your job is to uncover it. It is there. It's not like it may be there. It's to find it and then to compensate for the fatal flaw so it is a good investment. But always go into it not looking for a reason to justify the investment, but looking for a reason not to, looking for the reason that will cause you to lose all your money. And those are I've made that mistake twice. Two times cost me several $100,000 and then a couple of $1 million by not doing my due diligence. And so that's what I would pass on. Do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. Uh, and as Jim said, spend as least as much time studying the investment as you do earning the money to invest in it in the first place. Study the investment.
And I can think of almost every really bad thing that happened to me turned out to be a blessing, including
Oh yeah,
the one time Jim said, "Hey Kyle, Herbalife wants me to go full time, and I can't do public seminars anymore." And that happened about not 1999. He said, "I can give you 10 dates."
I
But Brian,
remember that.
I've already built the online platform, or no, I'm sorry, I already had the products. And there's this thing called the internet. And you're doing 100 talks a year, Zig's doing 100 talks a year, and Jim can only do 10. So guess what? I had a little bit more focus than everyone else to go build the internet. So that's what led to building the million plus list because I had a mantra, a goal of how do I build a company without Jim showing up. So
Right,
everyone else, who's got when Peter Lowe's hiring Zig 100 dates a year, who has time to look at the internet, right? And
right.
you were maxed out speaking, but I got to totally focus on that. And I think and then what happened, you go build the internet, my big, not enemy, but the challenge Herbalife, guess what? They're in 54 countries. So all of a sudden, I'm reaching all their people through my newsletter and online. So it all worked itself out beautifully. And it always does, I think, if we're trying to do the right things and we're open, and it's amazing how things all work out the way they're supposed to work out.
You know what they say is that when God closes one door, he opens another.
Yes.
Yes, so being optimistic, saying, okay, well, what other door is opening? And it may not be obvious. Sometimes God says no. You start a business, and God says no, this is not a good business for you, and you get out of it and find out later. Thank heavens, because the deeper you'd gotten in, the harder it would have been to get out. So, um, looking for the valuable lesson is, I was just talking with one of my clients earlier today, said the same thing is identify what did I learn from this? What will I do differently? What would I do more of, less of? I have a formula that I used to teach to my coachees, my clients. And the formula was that there's only four ways to change your life. And there's just four. And these are the four that you apply to everything you're doing. Number one, what do I need to do more of? What do I need to do more of? And that's always revenue generation. almost always revenue generation, or maybe it's selecting better people or more people or attracting more people and so on. But revenue generation is the reason for business failure is low sales. The reason for business success is high sales, and everything else is commentary. Number two is what should you be doing less of? And you should be doing less of those things that are of low value or no value. You've got to discipline yourself like Nancy Reagan. Just say no. Just say no to low value activities. Number three is what should you start doing that you're not doing now? What should you start doing that you're not doing now? And you know what it is, but it's the hardest thing of all because of the comfort zone. It's what Sir Isaac Newton called the law of inertia. A body at rest tends to remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. In other words, in order for you to be successful, you've got to move. You've got to take action. And it's very hard to do that. People, the great majority of people, the bottom 80%, resist taking a new action. You always got an excuse. Well, what about this and what about that? And then the last one of all is really important is what you need to stop doing altogether. And this is a part of my seminars that I teach. It's called zero-based thinking. We've talked about this before. Is there anything that I'm doing today that knowing what I now know, I wouldn't start doing again today? And how can you tell if you're in a zero-based thinking situation? The answer is stress. You feel stress. You feel it in your gut. And successful people trust their gut. And your gut says, I'm not comfortable with this. Or it's causing me stress, or it's keeping me awake at night, even worse. It's even causing me to drink or I mean, because it's so stressful. Is what you do if I had not entered into this situation, knowing what I now know, would I do it? And Drucker talks about this. He said, if the answer is no, then the next question is, how do I get out and how fast? How do I get out and how fast? And the answer is now. Get out now. Is you don't wait and delay and let me think about it and get some more information. If your gut tells you that you wouldn't get into it, get out. And most of your stress is going to come from bad choices. So then do you have the courage to admit it seemed like a good idea at the time, but it wasn't, and walk away. Have the courage to walk away.
No, the zero-based thinking is just one of the all-time great questions to ask when trying to make a decision about something you've been hanging on to for a long time. So powerful. So Brian, a couple of more, and then I'll let you go because you've been so generous with your time. What would be something most people wouldn't know about you? Maybe it's friends you have, or even not family, but people, that next level of association that they just wouldn't know about Brian Tracy. They'd be surprised to find out whatever it may be.
Well, this is something I've been wrestling with because I'm about to write my final autobiography. I was a professional soldier in my 20s in Africa.
Okay.
I won't go into that in great deal, but being a professional soldier for hire is quite an interesting experience. What you go through, the people that you work with, the people you work against, it opens your eyes in ways that affect you for the rest of your life. And it now comes full circle 50 years later or more, maybe 60, almost 60. You start to think that it has a real impact on your life because you're basically staring death in the eyes all the time for we call it a contract. You sign up for a contract with a professional soldiering organization. And so for most of that time, the reason you're paid well is because the risks are extremely high. We had a casualty rate of 49%. 100 men went in and 51 came out. Not all were dead, but a lot were wounded. But professional soldiering is a very dangerous profession. It's not something that one gets into with their eyes closed.
I've known you,
Anyways,
I was going to say, I've known you for 33 years. I did not know that. So you're right. Most people would not know you had been a professional soldier.
yeah, it was very interesting. I just again I think about it later on in life, but I'm sure it had an impact on my um, thinking, my attitude toward business, my resolution, determination, persistence. I mean, once you've been out there where they say where the wild crosses grow, once you've been out there, you're really not afraid of very much. And so
Right.
there, and
Have
if
a
you're not,
liberation effect.
yeah,
Potential.
yeah, if you're not afraid, then you'll try all kinds of things and you will never quit. That's another thing. You just never quit. It's not part of your. So someone once asked me, "What do you think is your very best quality?" And if just a few seconds, I thought about it. Never thought about it before. And my very best quality is I am unstoppable.
Mm.
I'm unstoppable. Is I will never quit. And that's the very best quality that our friends listening to this can develop. And how do you develop the quality of becoming unstoppable? That is the most important quality for success in business. And the answer is you simply say the words, I am unstoppable to yourself over and over again. Whenever you think that you may fail or people may disapprove of you or you may lose your money or something, you say, wait a minute, I'm unstoppable. It's no matter what, I will bounce back. I will never stop. I will keep coming. I'll try different things, but I'm unstoppable. And I used to say this to my audiences, and I'd say, remember, you become what you think about, you also become what you say to yourself. And so, therefore, keep repeating it over and over again. And at a certain point, it locks in. At a certain point, it locks in and it becomes part of you, and you become unstoppable. And after that, your success is inevitable. Nothing can stop you from being successful except, oh my God, I said, yes, there is one person who can stop you from achieving great success. And who would that be? Yeah,
Right.
2,000 people. Remember that? Who could that be? And they all point to themselves. I'm the only person who can stop myself. Yes. And that's a life-changing revelation.
I uh I was going to ask what's your superpower. I think you just answered it. I have to, before we started hitting record, we were talking about I've had a little bit of a health transformation for the better. You've known me all these years. And something I didn't tell you is after I work out, I do my infrared sauna I have here at the house. Then I do a cold plunge. And one of my mantras before the cold plunge is I do hard things. Like I go through my seven chakras, and for each one, I am, I do, I feel, I love, I speak, I see, I receive. And so when I do, which is my solar plexus, I'm always like, I do hard things. I do what's going to take me towards my goal. So all the affirmations you've always taught. And it
Yes.
is powerful getting in that freaking cold plunge when you don't want to. And it does become addictive, back to healthy addictions. It's like
Yes.
it's very addictive because of all the right reasons, right? Um, So yes, we are unstoppable. That's very powerful.
Yes, we are.
Here's the last one. How do you define success?
Um, Interesting question. I would say success is being free to be the very best person you can be and to do the things that you want to do. And the reason we want to be financially successful is because that liberates us to be the best we can be and to do the things that we want to do and go where we want. You know, that one liner that you can go to a restaurant and order without looking at the right-hand column to see how hungry you are.
Right.
Uh, well, that is a great thing. It's a great thing to have enough money so that you don't worry about money. Yeah.
Love that answer. And we said at the beginning, you talked about that money flows, right? You can't outgive. And when you're, and I think the same way, like those that really are fortunate that know how to make money, most of them tend to keep that money flowing. So they're not. There's something to be said about, yeah, be shrewd on certain things, but maybe be shrewd with yourself at times, but be generous to to the people that work with you and the people that, because that keeps it all flowing. And I do think spiritually and otherwise, there's something to be said about that. That's the positives, as you said, of being able to make money, is you can help it flow better.
Of course, but if you don't have the money, you can't really be helpful to anybody else. So therefore, first of all, provide for yourself. Be self-responsible, take care of yourself, make sure that you're financially well off. Then you'll have the resources to be able to help other people. But poor people can't help other poor people. It's only people who have used their talents to the highest and best level and made something of themselves that have the resources to be able to help others.
Brian, I mean, you look amazing. You're doing incredible. I had Howard Partridge recently tell me you just spoke for his conference. I introduced you to Howard back in the day, and he always thanks me for that. He's like, "Thank you so much for introducing me to Brian." Uh, so if people, so you're still doing public events and Zoom calls, and you have training when people come to San Diego. What's the best way for people to engage, to want to learn more about working with
Just,
people?
just go to my website, Brian Tracy at briantracy.com, and we'll give you any information that you like. I've just arranged a massive speaking tour for Europe and the Middle East this fall, and I'm going to Alaska on Saturday for 8 or 9 days with my family, and everything is fine. I have a little problem with my feet. I have what is called peripheral neuropathy, which is something you develop if you're in a hospital bed. I've had 21 surgeries in the last 30 years. And if you spend too much time in the hospital, the blood slows down its flow to your peripheries, your hands and your feet, and the nerves die. And when the nerves die, your feet and fingers become numb, and you don't have the sensitivity that you had, and they never come back. Once they slow down, they never come back. So you have to continually exercise to keep what cells are alive. But aside from that, the most important thing in your life is your mind, and it's to keep your mind clear and positive, to eat good foods and to exercise vigorously and aerobically and do all these things so that you are really sharp and alert. That's more important than anything else. And so that's what I focus on.
Well, you're looking great. It's so great to catch up. I told you I'm going to be in San Diego in 3 weeks. I'd love to swing by and say hi to you. And
You have time, then let's go out for dinner. There's a great seafood restaurant around the corner from here, and we'll get there and shoot the shit.
I would love to do that. So the answer is yes. Brian, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. Thanks for changing my life and impacting so many other people, millions of people around the world, me included, but so many of my people you've had such a massive influence on.
Well, you too, Kyle. You've had a massive influence on an enormous number of people with everything that you've done. There's a great story. It was by about P.T. Barnum, and the movie starred Burt Lancaster some years ago. And at the end of the movie, it shows his whole life and all the things that he did. At the end of the movie, he turns, and he does this throughout the movie and speaks to you directly. Um, and he said, people say that I said there's a sucker born every minute. And he said, I never said anything like that. He said, I'm an impresario. I've brought some of the greatest talents in the world to massive audiences that they would never have seen before. He said, and it's the audiences that have enabled me to enjoy such a wonderful lifestyle. And this is what he said. He said, it's you who make me possible. I could never say or call you a sucker. He said, it's because you who make me possible. And I've always thought of that as a speaker and seminar organizers, it's you, the people who come, who make me possible. You make me capable of fulfilling my potential and my ability to help you. And that's how I feel about you, is you make me possible, and then I make you possible. And that's a wonderful way to live.
I could 100% count on Brian Tracy showing up and bringing massive value, more value than you're paid for, right? Bringing massive value, out working, out showing up, signing every autograph, going the extra mile. We would always have dinner the night before. Not
Yes,
not everyone does that, but you would want to, and you would want to invest in me, invest in my team,
yes.
invest in the people there. And so thank you for being such a servant and so giving. And you've been such a great example to me on how to show up as well when people show up in my world. So again, thank you, my friend. So honored to call you a longtime mentor and friend in my life.
Thank you, Kyle. And I look forward to having dinner with you when you get it.
Yes, I will message you and we'll get the date down.
Yes, we will.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, my friend. See you later.